I am very excited about today's guest. He is an OPUS Klassik award-winning harmonica player, and he's been described as a wunderkind since he first started playing. He's equally at home in jazz and classical environments. He is the fantastic Konstantin Reinfeld. Hello, Konstantin. How are you doing today?
Hey, Tomlin. I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this. I'm really excited. So for people who don't know much about you, will you tell us where you are currently at, where you're from, and what it's looking like at the moment? Because we are still in COVID times, amazingly.
Oh, yeah, it's not really getting better here in Germany, but yeah, well, originally I'm like from the west of Germany, like very close to the border to the Netherlands.
Okay.
And I moved to Cologne first for my studies, for my music studies, and now I'm located in Hamburg, so in the north of Germany.
Nice. And how are you pretty locked down at the moment?
Oh yeah, I think there's even like a curfew starting tomorrow here in Hamburg.
Wow.
Right. So, yeah.
So I guess that means no gigs.
No gigs, not really. Like only live streams. Yeah, I hope I can play at least some gigs like outdoors in summer or something. I'm sure there will be like at least like small events happening, but nothing major, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that really sucks. I mean, I've not been in a studio with my band since March 2020. It really sucks. But a couple of things that I wanted to talk about that you've already mentioned. We'll talk about your education, because you told me some pretty cool news just before we started recording. But before we talk about that, let's have a chat about these live streams that you've been doing, because I think that a lot of people during COVID just sat at home and did nothing, but you started doing a lot more stuff, and you started doing a lot of live stream stuff. So tell us a little bit about that and how it's been going.
Yeah, that was crazy. Like one of the best things that happened to me, like during COVID, I would say. So I was glad that I could start out with a daily live stream actually in 2020, like as soon as the lockdown started in March or something. So I actually counted. I did like 275 live streams last year.
Wow.
So that's a lot. And that really kept me going, like just having that one day that, I had to be there every day. So,
and so what that's a lot of live streams. Were you teaching something new every day? What was the plan? What were you doing every single day, and how did you keep fresh and motivated?
Yeah, it was like pretty educational. Yeah, I was basically teaching, but so I started out German, only German live streams on the YouTube channel, but then I think in October last year I switched over to another platform called Twitch, and there I'm streaming 3 times a week right now in English, and yeah, it's like I created like a Discord server for the harmonica community who's watching, and there's a very, very nice connection between me and the viewers and the community through these platforms. Definitely different than YouTube, and just started out with monthly harmonica battles or challenges this year. So that's a format I'm really excited about.
That's cool. Yeah, I noticed the funk challenge with Jason Ritchie. Do you want to tell people a little bit more about what these challenges are and what the funk challenge was? Because that was cool.
Oh yeah, well, that was probably the format I really dreamed of. I discovered it by another music producer. His name is Kenny Beats. I'm really into music production, and I'm checking out his streams sometimes. And he started to do beat battles every week. He has like a lot of viewers. And I thought it would also be possible with harmonica. So we started out with an Irish harmonica challenge in January with Brandon Power. Then we did a train harmonica challenge with Joe Falisco in February. And yeah, the last one was the Funk Blues challenge with Jason Ritchie. So he was the special guest and judging with me. yeah, people have a lot of time to submit their recordings to the Discord channel, and we check them out together. In the end, it's a popular vote. So there are 3 categories for beginners, intermediates, and advanced players. And there are some great prizes all the time. So I can continue this like monthly now. And yeah, I think we can do a challenge with Howard Levy in April.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really, really cool. And it's a very fun idea. I like everything that's making the community stronger. I think the community got a lot stronger over the last year.
That's
just
true. Yeah.
In general. Yeah, it's
also motivating for everyone, because usually in the music scene, I mean, you're meeting up at concerts, at events, and they are not taking place. So you're not seeing other people play and stuff, and that's so important. Like,
definitely,
if you see harmonica players in, I don't know, Brazil or China playing, you're really motivated to practice yourself.
Absolutely, and anyone can take part, can't they?
Definitely, yeah.
That's very cool. Well, I will make sure that that's linked up in the show notes below your Twitch channel, because I think Twitch is a very famous platform outside of the harmonica world. Like it's maybe a slightly younger platform than we're normally used to, but it's pretty easy to use, and I think that it will be good if people start looking over there, and it's all geared up for streaming, whereas YouTube isn't necessarily quite as clean, I don't think. So you've been doing a lot of live streams, but you've also been finishing your master's degree, haven't you?
Exactly. Yeah, that's like very recent. So I played my final concert on Tuesday evening. Obviously, that was a live stream concert only. And there was basically nobody in the room with us, only like the live streaming team. But it was fun. I mean, I was supposed to play that at the Big Alp Jazz Festival here in Hamburg last summer already. And of course, I postponed it. The festival didn't take place, and my hope was to play my final concert at least in front of some people. But yeah, not possible right now, and I just had to do it in March. So,
but that's cool. So what was your master's exactly?
Well, yeah, I started out with a program that was called Jazz Pop in Cologne for 4 years. So that's where I got my bachelor degree. And in Hamburg, there was just a very special master degree, which was split. So there was 50% instrumental and 50% something I chose, which was music production. But within the instrumental part of my studies, I had the chance to get lessons with Howard Levy.
Wow.
So that's very special about the master program here in Hamburg. So you can choose your teacher. It can be anyone. You just have to, make the connection or get in touch yourself.
That's amazing. I mean, what was it like working with Howard Levy?
Yeah, I mean, that was fantastic. Like, I just remember getting to know him for the first time in 2011, I think. That was at the Frankfurt Music Fair, where I was for Hohner at their booth for the first time as an endorsee. And he gave me a lesson there on site, talking about some diminished scale patterns, and I didn't understand anything at that point. But yeah, like especially his online school, the Howard Levy Harmonica School, helped me a lot to dive into jazz. And yeah, so that was fantastic to just be in touch with him directly. And within the studies, I even had the chance to fly him over to Hamburg. He was an artist in residence at the music school for a week, and we played a concert together. And there's another concert in Hamburg being planned for this year too.
Wow. So, that's nuts, because like Howard Levy makes everyone scared in the harmonica community because he's just such an incredible player. That must have been just the most amazing opportunity. And we've actually got people who some of my students have asked questions for you, and people we're quite interested to hear about mentors and kind of important people in your musical development. So I guess Howard Levy must be quite a big one. Were there any others along the way?
Well, yeah, it was really about like advancing on the instrument all the time. So Howard Levy was the best example for that. And yeah, after I started out playing, just checking out like regular like folk music and getting into blues, I just wanted to get better on the instrument. And the only thing I saw online was jazz. So that's why I played jazz. Not that I like jazz, but I still like improvising. But I don't like jazz in general too much. Like,
okay, that's really interesting. I didn't know
instruments. So Howard Levy, of course, played a huge role there, and just like broadening my perspective musically. I got into electronic music at some point and checked out a producer. His name is Flying Lotus. His uncle or his aunt, I think, is Alice Coltrane. So there's definitely like a jazz connection there, and that was very exciting for me and definitely broadened my perspective on music. So that played a huge role.
That's cool. I like that. That's probably something that's quite unexpected when you're chatting to a harmonica player, and it's kind of more of a kind of music producer, electronic act that you're kind of listening to and getting inspiration from. That's very, very cool. So let's go a bit further back and go to your origin story. Do you come from a musical family? Was it something that you were destined to do, or did you discover it yourself?
Well, definitely musical, but like nothing professionally going on in my family. Like my grandfather sang in a choir, but yeah, my mother also likes to sing, and my father is into music. I grew up listening to a lot of like Creedence Clearwater Revival and Rolling Stones and stuff like that. But also my mother was really into bossa nova and jazz. So I don't know if I picked it up that early on already, but yeah, that's like the background. So I started out playing piano very early on, getting lessons from my mother. I was being paid for the lessons.
Nice.
And yeah, I didn't really like playing piano. I didn't really practice. I didn't really like my teacher then. But coming up, I just started to play the clarinet after some time. I fell in love with the sound at some point. But yeah, even though I got really good on the instrument, I didn't really practice. Like it was like the standard, just practicing 15 minutes before the lesson.
Yeah.
And I didn't really notice that we actually got into jazz and improvising a little at some point already. But yeah, after some time, just started to take the harmonica into my hands when improvisation was needed during my clarinet lessons, and I think the teacher already knew that it was over.
Yeah. So how old were you when you started playing harmonica specifically?
Well, I started playing when I was 13, I think. Yeah.
Okay. And when you were really starting out, did you manage to find someone to teach you harmonica, or were you kind of teaching yourself at that stage?
Oh yeah, I was really teaching myself. So I started out buying a Blues Harp MS and a little instruction book. Came home. It was like during Christmas, I think. So my grandparents were at home, and my grandfather was sitting at the piano and said, "Oh, you should try to play the major scale." And I started out on one whole blow, and like as soon as I reached a two whole draw, I couldn't play the scale. So that was weird already. But really, I just worked on the whole thing, just using the instruction book, and then the internet was the biggest help ever. Like just signing up to the harmonica forums that are online. There's also a German one, and I was just very happy that I could upload my recordings there. very bad webcam recordings of my harmonica playing. I uploaded them to YouTube, and I got fantastic feedback from the community, and that's how I learned. Until some people got in touch with me there, and there was a teacher from Germany who gave me like the first Skype lessons, teaching me like the basics. And that's where I noticed that, I can actually learn harmonica online through Skype and ask my favorite players for lessons. And that's what I did. Like all the players that I discovered on YouTube, I just wrote them an email and asked for a little lesson. And like gladly, like the harmonica community is so generous. Like I got like at least like one lesson for free from everyone.
Brilliant.
So that was fantastic. Yeah.
That's cool. So who are some standout people that you remember getting lessons with on Skype, kind of early days? Who are the people that
starting out, I got some lessons from Ben Bouwman from the Netherlands.
Yeah.
It was very close to my hometown. He was organizing some festivals there, and I went there sometimes. I also learned Dutch at school. So.
Oh, wow. Multilinguist.
And then, I think I got a lesson with Carlos Del Junco, Mariano Masolo, Dennis Grunling.
Wow.
But really just like single lessons, basically. Just getting to know them. So, yeah.
That's very cool. I can only imagine what that would have done. That would have been absolutely amazing to get lessons from those guys. One thing I'm interested is, you are a very technically able diatonic player, and you play very advanced bending and overblowing and overdrawing and all that kind of thing. And I'm interested as to why you picked diatonic when you could have gotten those notes more easily on a chromatic. What made you make that choice?
I mean, I think it wasn't my choice. It was just the sound that I fell in love with. Like, I mean, there are still situations where I really like the sound of the chromatic harmonica, but I feel like just for me personally, I have a better connection to the diatonic harmonica, and I feel I have more control over the expression, and I can express myself better through it. So I just play a little chromatic here and there, like if people want me to play it. But the diatonic harmonica is just,
it speaks to you,
my instrument. Yeah.
But that's something that I hear a lot from pro players and students. It's very rarely their first instrument. They've usually tried a bunch of things. You had piano, then clarinet, and then you had that moment. And I get it all the time with students who it's usually a size thing. So that they usually start with a big instrument physically, and it gets smaller and smaller. I think they think that by the time they get to harmonica, it's going to be easier because it's smaller. And by that stage, they just think, okay, well, I'm going to commit to it, even though it's hard, and they fall in love. But it's. I think the expression is a big deal. I've got another question from a student. Vladimir has asked about improvisation and kind of what scales you use and how you would recommend improving improvisation skills. Your 2-minute tips for someone who wants to get better at improvisation.
Wow. I mean, that's a very general question, right?
Okay, well, he wants to know especially for the blues.
Okay.
So I think he wants kind of scales and modes that would be useful for the blues, and then maybe your approach.
Well, I mean, of course, like in blues, like most players are familiar with like the two scales, like the blues scale probably, or just the pentatonic, and like the Mixolydian mode, which just lays out naturally on the instrument. So thinking about blues music, of course, like there's a lot of stuff going on there that's like more like lick based, you could say that, compared to jazz, where you're often dealing with like a continuous flow of eighth notes, which is definitely another approach and needs some practice or like some time to adjust to you started out playing blues. So yeah, combining these two flavors, that's pretty nice, I think. So yeah, and then also it's there are a lot more scales coming in there into play in jazz, I think. So, but that involves a lot of theory. So I'm still very, very interested in like not only thinking about scales and playing fast stuff, but also I'm really interested in like tone on the harmonica and how you can change that, and expression, and leaving pauses.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice, and it's interesting because I just had a lesson with Philip Jers, and basically I wanted a lesson on how to make my blues sound more jazzy. And he said, "Oh, don't think about scales. Think about arpeggios, and really focus on playing the chord tones." And
yeah, like thinking about jazz, there are like these two approaches, like starting out with the arpeggios only, and adding approach notes from below, from above, and then there's like on the other side the scale chord connection. Where you really connect like every chord with one specific scale, and then you can also switch them up.
Yeah. So would you say you're more one side or the other? Are you more scales or more chords?
No, that really depends on the piece or the style or my mood.
That's cool. Okay, so well, we've answered. One of the students asked why harmonica. I think you've answered that question really well. But one thing that I think is a good area to go to, because I know that you do like blues, even though you're maybe not well known for playing blues. Yeah. Eddie wants to know what your kind of favorite blues tunes are, and kind of what players are your favorite blues players.
Oh, my favorite blues players, that's very clear. When I was really into blues and listening to blues harmonica, the CDs I bought were recordings by Rick Astron and Rod Piazza.
Nice.
That's what I really enjoyed. That was also very entertaining, and like also the connection to their singing voice, which I think is amazing for both of them. Like that's very special to me.
Yeah. Oh, those are cool examples, and also they're names I hear a lot, but they're not names that you hear straight away.
Especially Rod Piazza. Have you heard him like on recent harmonica podcasts at all?
I know, and he's an amazing player. Okay, I've got another question from a student about fitting in with a pianist. So Mariko wants to know, because you play with a pianist quite a lot, how do you fit the two instruments together? Are there things that you need to think about specifically for that kind of arrangement?
Well, I mean, first off, there's like the big difference in like size between the two instruments. So the piano is pretty big, the harmonica is very small, especially playing on stage. Like I think the monitoring for the harmonica is very important. You got to be able to hear yourself very well, and the pianist has to be able to hear yourself. So that's very important. But yeah, maybe the question was heading more towards like arranging, or
I think I directed it more towards arranging, but the question was just fitting the two instruments together, musically together. So I guess, are there kind of range issues that you need to think about? Because piano kind of covers everything and fills up a big sonic space. How do you fit around that?
Thing. It really depends on the pianist too, like and his feel, and also the time you spend with the pianist you're playing with. Like he has to adjust a little, of course, and he will learn from what the harmonica can do and how it sounds. And again, that also depends on the player. So I'm playing with Benjamin, my classical pianist, but we also play some jazz and a lot of improvised music for 4 years now, and he's very very good at that.
I'm interested in how you pick classical repertoire. Is there another instrument that you will pick from? For example, is violin music good for a harmonica player to play, or like what's the instrument that is most easy to move from?
Well, if you think about the range of the harmonica, the violin is very similar, and the flute. So checking out a lot of those pieces. Yeah. It makes a lot of sense. But in the end, of course, like I don't try to restrict myself mentally at all, and just I'm always surprised what's possible on the instrument. Even if I do like jazz transcriptions and stuff, and I find phrases that lay out fantastically on the harmonica, which I never think of. So yeah, in the end, it's just like my taste. If I like a piece, I just try to make it work on the harmonica.
Yeah. So you said a little bit earlier that you aren't the biggest jazz fan, kind of naturally. So I'm wondering where do you see your own music going in the future? Are you going to be doing more kind of beats and harmonica and mixing the two together? Is that something you're interested in?
Well, I'm interested in that. It's hard actually. To make it work. So I think I prefer like making music for singers, like producing.
Yeah.
I think I really like to improvise. I mean, that's a very general thing. And that can be jazz, and I like jazz. I especially like jazz when you can see that the players really have fun playing jazz. Like, because that's not always the case, from what I know. So it can be too serious at some point.
Well, I think quite often I've noticed in kind of my local musician pool that there kind of gets a stage in people's development where they've kind of done everything that they wanted to do, and so the next logical challenge is to do the hardest music they can find, and so it's jazz, and it turns into a bit of an academic exercise.
That's what I don't like.
Yeah,
exactly.
I'm with you. But I think you come from that sort of bluesy, expressive background, and that's probably going to be important forever. In your playing, that even if you're playing musically very complex things, you still want that amazing expression and tone. You said that tone was very important to you. And I think that's something that a lot of very technically gifted musicians forget about. They forget about, how do you make a note sound absolutely fantastic? And that's, I think, your kind of your secret weapon that you care about that.
Yeah, I care a lot about that. I mean, it just comes with the instrument so naturally, and that's why I try to include it everywhere. Like, doesn't matter if I'm playing like film music and world music or video game music. I mean,
that's cool. So before we wrap things up, I'd love to find out if there's anything new that you're working on, any kind of new projects that you want to tell us about, anything you're really excited about.
Well, I recorded an album with Stevie Wonder songs some time ago already. We're going to put some of those songs out this year. So that's also a duo setting with a jazz pianist from Berlin, Christoph Spangenberg. And besides that, I'm continuing like the classical project with Benjamin Nuss on piano. So we've been to the studio in the end of February, recording some pieces that were actually composed for our duo. So there are 7 compositions that were written for us. Also very contemporary ones, because I met up with the composers and I showed them all sorts of like weird harmonica techniques, and they really enjoyed them, and they put them into the compositions.
Awesome. That's very cool.
So one of them is already on our first CD, written by Masashi Hamauso, who's famous for his work in the video game music world. Basically.
Nice.
I'm writing music for Final Fantasy, We have a piece that we just recorded written by Miguel Edward Ferguson, who arranged a lot of strings for Flying Lotus, the LA producer I mentioned earlier. And right now, Howard Levy is writing a piece for us, which is very exciting.
Nice.
And Aaron Parks, who's an amazing jazz pianist from New York, whom I had a lesson with at some point too when I was there. And we want to, just send out even more composition mandates for instruments. So that's very exciting. That's like the next classical album with Benjamin. And then I'm really into music production, but like there's not always harmonica in there.
That's really cool. So any plans to tour once lockdown has ended?
Well, yeah, there are so many dates that are being postponed, like for many times now. But I'm sure there's something happening very soon.
Cool.
And I hope that some of the harmonica festivals take place.
Yeah, we need to get those happening again. I think people are missing out on all the amazing experience of being in a room with other musicians playing the same instrument as you. It's very powerful. Well, listen, Konstantin, this has been awesome. It's been a very, very fun way to spend a little bit of time. What's the best place for people to find out more about you? Where should they check out your stuff?
Well, I think I'm most active on Instagram.
Okay.
That's probably the best place. But in terms of music, harmonica, of course, like the Twitch channel, I'm online there every week, like 3 times a week.
Nice.
So we're doing the challenges, and of course, I can check everything out on Spotify in terms of music.
Cool. Well, I will link all of that up in the show notes, and invite people especially to go to the Twitch channel, because then they get to watch you live, which is very fun. And thank you so much for doing this, and hopefully we can do a round 2 at some point if you're keen.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. All right, take it easy. I'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of my Harmonica podcast. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave a review on your podcast service of choice. And if you're ready to take your harmonica playing to the next level, then you should check out my online harmonica school over at tomlinharmonicaschool.com. Happy harping!